What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Mike Roach podcast, brought to you by the one and only OXP Media and the Battle Canada series. Now, for those who are going to be watching this on YouTube and watching the clips, there's a pretty familiar face that you're about to see. The one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Courtney M. Charles, Vice President of Basketball and Franchise Operations for the Raptors 905. Courtney, what is happening, my brother? It's been a long time since we've been able to have a decent conversation, brother.
Good to see you, my man. I'm glad that you're safe and healthy, and hope that everybody listening to this famous station is also safe and healthy and all in good spirits. But yes, it's been a while since we've been at Scotiabank Arena, where we normally would conversate and talk the game of basketball. So definitely different times, but a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for having me.
Now, I got to give you a big congratulations since you have this new position. I know you've had it for a few months now, but my man, this is something we've talked about for many years now. I mean, when I just came into the organization doing some stuff around the team, it was, I think, around 2014 when I met you, and you've been in and around the game of basketball and the Raptors for a long time, and you have just been steadily moving up the ranks. So what was it like when you got that news about this promotion for you?
Well, the news was really just another accomplishment of that you try to achieve in life. I think, as you mentioned, in 2014, I was a manager of player development at that point, and really just going into a different part of the business where I was learning to work with players specifically and finding a way to make sure that they were maximizing their opportunity in the NBA and to provide resources for them. And when you look at this new opportunity, it's now doing it for not only players, but your staff, and to build a team across Canada to be something that everybody looks at and says, if I can't make the Raptors, then I need to try to at least make 905. And if I can't work for the Raptors, I at least need to try to see if I can work for 905. So it's something where you're setting the standard, giving people hope and giving people the opportunity. And I take pride in building this, looking to make it be successful. We just finished a great opportunity of G League season in the Orlando bubble, which was great to be a part of. And thanks to our ownership group for putting that together, and Masai for being the leader he is and giving us that chance. So it's been a great few months doing what we love, and to be able to participate in the game of basketball.
All right, so now let's take it back a little bit. Where exactly did you grow up, and what was life like for you growing up in your household? Did you have any siblings? What were your parents like? What was life like for you as a child?
So it's interesting because, for our viewers, they're going to know a little bit more of these places. So I grew up in North York, right around the area of Victoria Park in Ellesmere. And that's kind of where, my roots really started. And then I ended up moving to Scarborough. And when I moved to Scarborough, it was nothing but farmland. That's, dating myself back to 1984. So not anything of what people know of Scarborough today. And I grew up in an area called Alton Tower Circle, which is really interesting because there's a lot of successful people that have come from that area. It's something that we've all moved to an area to hopefully have a better opportunity, and a lot of us have taken advantage of that. In my household, there was my mom, my dad, and my brother, my little brother. And it's something that, you look back and you reminisce, and you remember moving and changing schools and doing different things. And those are all the things that you remember now when you get into adversity or into things that you wonder, how is it going to work? Like the team moving to Tampa, or the G League season being somewhere different. You got to take all these experiences that you had. So nothing but great things from my childhood.
What has the pandemic taught you about yourself?
So the pandemic taught me that I'm a person that loves to keep working. As much as I'm home, my kids still don't get a chance to see me a ton because I'm always on Zoom calls and I'm always on the phone. So I'm just as busy. So it's something that I realized is part of who I am, because the pandemic was to allow you to do things differently and to almost even slow down. And it's something that is not within my realm of thinking. I'm always trying to accomplish something, even if it's just around the house. Being home has allowed me to realize there's work to be done here as well. So for me, it's great that I've learned that. I'm trying to make sure I try to balance out life a little bit better. It doesn't always have to be basketball. I don't always have to be on and working, but it is something that I enjoy and I see as the way that I survive. This is how I do what I do.
So how do you turn your brain off when it just keeps going at night, though?
So for me, I like to clean. So I like to, if it's cleaning my car, cleaning the house, cleaning something that, you need to do annually or every so many months at a time. I've got a schedule for all those things because that's kind of my way of maybe getting away from basketball or getting away from looking at a screen or being on my phone. When I detail my car, I can be out there for hours and I can forget about things. So that's kind of my go-to.
How did you get into sports? Now I know you were a track runner.
Yes.
Was that your number one sport growing up, was track?
Basketball was my number one sport. Track was what I was better at. It's one of those things where sport is where I kind of found myself, where I said, this is where I am and I want to be better. In the classroom, you always had to be better, but you never really knew where you were. You would get one good test and then you maybe get one bad test and then your average would say you're here. Mm-hmm. But you may not always have felt like you were there. You would have felt like, man, I need to go work on some spelling, or I need to do better in French, or I'm really good in math. But you always knew there was always that one thing in math that made you feel like you weren't so good in math, or you did something in another class and you really did good, but your average didn't represent that. For me, sports was a thing where you can never be good enough. And that was the thing that made me realize I'm gonna keep pushing myself to a level of excellence and to have a high standard and a high expectation. So for me, it really just came from competition. It started from races on the street. You race your friend and you beat them. And you realize your friend starts telling other people that since I'm faster than you, then you're faster than him. So then that person would say, no way. So then you race them. And at that point, that's where I started realizing I had speed, but I wanted to use speed in basketball. But unfortunately, I couldn't get that timing down. I'd get to the hoop first, but I would lay it up too hard or too soft and not put it in the hoop, right? And those were the things that I would practice and keep working on my timing. But it wasn't until about grade 10 when I had a teacher sit me down and say, I see a bright future in track that could lead you to some things. You probably can maybe do some of those same things in basketball, but it's going to be a little harder. So I still tried to do both, but I focused more on track at that time.
You did go south of the border with it too, didn't you?
Man, I ended up at a JUCO for a year where I got a scholarship and they really introduced me to the business of sport. And then I got a scholarship to a D2 school called Lewis University, where I ended up finishing out my undergrad. And then I ended up coaching at Marshall University in West Virginia to kind of round out my track career. And then I decided from that point on, I'm going to see if I can get back into basketball and do nothing but basketball. And I have ever since.
What was your internship experience like with the Toronto Raptors?
Well, I always tell everybody it started off with the person hiring me getting fired. Rab Babcock was the official GM and at that time kind of ran the basketball operations side of everything. And I went through my interview process with Doreen and Steve Fruitman, and the final person was Rob Babcock. And 30 days later, roughly, he was told he was relieved of his duties. And
we'll talk about Mr. good Embry, timing then.
Well, you talk about getting your dream opportunity and losing the person that's your biggest supporter and realizing, this is, again, like sports. You got to just step it up. You got to be ready. You got to compete. And thank goodness we had somebody like Mr. Embry, who was a great mentor, and helped balance out the priorities of what I needed to do to be a successful intern first. Couldn't think of a job at that point, just be the best intern you could be.
What's the lesson in your life that has taken you the longest to learn?
Ooh. I don't know if I can say the longest to learn. I've never heard it that way. For me, the two things are I always try to be better than I was yesterday, and then also try to be a great listener. And at some point, I can't say which one took me longer. I would say the longer one is to be, perfect. I think that's the one that you challenge yourself each day to say it's not realistic and it's not something that has to be that way. And I would say the longest to learn, because even when you think you've learned it, you always get hit with another example of where you could be better. And you're still learning it, right? So I would say trying to be perfect in everything, right? You're trying to be the perfect father, husband, in the boss, in some cases, if you want to say, co-worker, friend, all of these things, you're trying to be the best. And at some point, you're not going to be the best in all of it, but hopefully people see the effort.
Well, listen, that's interesting. So I'm just going to stay here for a second. Okay. Because I mean, I guess when you look at life, it's continuously changing, right? Like everything in life is always changing. If you even look, merely at our bodies from the time that we're born until the time that we die, even that continuously changes. It never does. And so does our behavior. And we all try to evolve as people and become better, right? Which is kind of what you were alluding to. So what action do you believe you can take today that would make you a better man than yesterday?
So I think the body's a perfect one. I'm sitting here with a little bit of scruff and wanting a haircut. And there was times when I would think I need to be perfect. If I'm going on camera, I need to be as clean looking as possible. But the pandemic has taught you that you can still be who you are. You can still be professional, and you can still come across. And people need to see that you can be different and look different. I remember when I grew my hair out the very first time and almost had what people wanted to call dreads or twist.
I loved it.
Right? I realized people looked at me differently, and people treated me differently.
Because they're saying, why the hell is his hair looking like that in your position?
Exactly. So that was like an example of where I'm trying to be perfect, but am I allowed to be myself and be perfect? Right? And that's, again, an example, like you said, of the body. When I was a runner, you almost think your body has to look a certain way to be a runner. No, you just have to be fast. That's the most important thing. But you do get caught up in, am I working out to be stronger, or am I working out to look good? Right? And you see that when you have kids. You start raising your kids and you want them to walk right. And you want them, but at some point, you just want them to be healthy, right? And you want them to be able to experience life. So these are all things that the word perfection, I think, obviously always has its own growth. But like you said, what took the longest for me to learn, I'd probably say that.
I loved when your hair was like that. And I took notice of it. I did take notice of it, because at the end of the day, when people are in the position that you're in, they're afraid to do that. They're afraid to do 100%. That because they know that they're going to be judged because of it. Doesn't matter 100%. How good you're doing the job. It doesn't matter, like you said, you can be completely perfect at doing your job, but because your hair is looking a certain way, you're going to be judged. But I'm going to move to here. I want you to tell me about your biggest failure that turned out to be your greatest asset.
I, 'cause, 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 'cause I don't think, again, when I think of failure, I always think of winning and losing. So for me,
Well, failure isn't
I
failure if you learn from it.
and that's what I was gonna say. Like for me, I don't ever really have anything that I can say I failed at. Um, I think I could have done better. I think I could have learned even more from it. So I don't necessarily have anything that I would necessarily say I failed at. What I would say that was really interesting um, for me was I started realizing that I was very much a risk taker than I would ever admit to, right? I was willing to do things that had never been done before. I was a person that didn't want to be just the norm, right?
What do you
And I
mean by
think
that? What do you mean you were
so.
willing to do things? Things like what?
So, for example, I remember when I first got into high school, I said I was going to work at McDonald's.
Hmm.
And at that point, no one that I was hanging around would ever admit they would even work at McDonald's, right? And when I look at the perception that McDonald's gave, it was also something that a lot of people don't necessarily want to be attached to, right? Um, but for me, it was convenient. It was close to home. It was close to school. They paid, and that's all I wanted was to get a job and make some money because I had some priorities of things that I wanted. Um, so for me, it made sense, and it was something that once I did it, everybody around me saw it as being something normal, right? But I had to go through a lot of people making fun of me, um, friends who ended up not wanting to be friends when I started, but then wanted to become friends again after they saw me working there for a while, and I was able to have my own money and be my own person. And then from that point on, it was the same thing going for everything else I did in life, which was going away to school and being away from home and doing an internship after having your master's degree. A lot of people don't put themselves back into those situations, right? Staying with a company for an extended period of time and not get a promotion or not being paid what you think you're worth. But I did all these things because I had my own priorities and thoughts of what I wanted out of it. And some people would say those are failures, but I would say I wasn't failing. I was learning, I was growing, and I'm now where I am today because I stuck through all of those different things that, again, some people would say are failures, but for me, I would say they were growth.
What kind of things do you do to work on yourself as a person?
Well, I'm very open to criticism. So I think I open up the feedback opportunity for me to learn on how I can be better. That's something that I think some people are not willing to do. They're not willing to have people critique them and to allow people to feel that they're at the same level as them. I'm the type of person that I'm going to work with you, and I'm going to let you even have input on something that maybe somebody else wouldn't give you input on because I'm going to try to empower you. So for me, it's really important on feedback and to grow from that feedback. That's kind of where I really stem with a lot of things. And again, when you're a track athlete, it's one of the first things you realize. You're running against the clock, and you can only get better by critiquing what you've done. You can have a personal best, you can have school records, you can be the fastest in the school, but if you're really trying to be great, you need to still find ways to get better.
Now, vice president of basketball and franchise operations, when you get that title, or what I should say, when you got that title, were you as happy or as satisfied as you thought you would be when you got it?
Whew. I think it's interesting. I think I'm not a person that's big on titles. Again, I started as an intern. I know what it means to be part of the sport. I know what it means to help grow this game. I know what it means to help develop people. So I'm not big on title, but I can honestly tell you this. I was very intentional in making sure that I took time to figure out what the title was because as a Black person going into a position that there weren't many to look up to or to admire, that I wanted to at least have a title to set the bar for others to try to achieve. And I wanted to make sure I was intentional and making sure that I just didn't take a title to take a title, that I put my research and work ethic into the title to make sure people realize that this is something that I want others to try to achieve, and to realize it's an opportunity for everyone to realize where this game is going.
Do you feel like there's added pressure because of you being African Canadian?
100%.
How so?
100%. Because when you look for support and mentorship, there's not many people to look for, to ask for help. And that means I need to do a really good job so that I can become that for others, and that others can dream bigger than what I dreamt. Because Mr. Embry, Masai Ujiri, now Mark Eversley, these are current people that are still working today, that if we were to try to look even past them, it's very, very, very small.
Do you know how many people talk about you in the community?
Whew, I don't, because I don't have social media for that one reason.
A lot.
I appreciate that.
I'm out there. I know a lot of people, when it comes to basketball and being in and around the NBA and the different communities, a lot of people talk about you. A lot of people, I know you, you talk to a lot of people on the phone. You talk to a lot of people by email. I remember when I just started working for the Raptors, I would bug Arsalan. I would bug Arsalan like every day. I was like trying to get an interview as I was trying to talk to people. And I remember when one of the seasons concluded, it was like in summertime had just started or something like that. And you were the only person that I met with. You were the only person I could get to meet with. And I think at the time, you didn't even know who you were meeting with at the time until you saw my face. You said, oh, thank God. I didn't know who I was meeting just now. You know, so it's crazy though. You have a huge impact in the community. Why do you feel it's so important to stay engaged in the community? And I know that sounds like an obvious answer question, but it's like you just said, a young guy who's, well, I'm fairly young, but I've been in and around the Raptors for a little while now. And like you said, sometimes you're looking for somebody to mentor you. You're looking for somebody to speak to. And you can find maybe one person. You've been a mentor for me more than anybody. I mean, aside from you and probably John Wiggins, you don't find too many other people who are going to be willing the time to sit down and talk to you, especially when they're not on the clock. Why is that it's so important to you? It has to do with it. It can't just be for career reasons. Why? You strictly don't do it for that, because you and I speak a lot more about life and other things than just about work. So I know it hit home with you. Please explain why.
Yeah, it's something where I'm trying to think as far back as, like I said, it might have started with McDonald's in them really accepting me. I remember when I started, I got promoted within the first 6 months. And I felt like that was rare for a Black person working in that world. And I got promoted again within 6 months. So within a year, I got 2 promotions. And I took such pride in the level of expectations they were putting me. They were saying, you can do so much more. And I felt like I can. And what you started realizing was, you started realizing that this company, who's really good at what they do, and it's funny to say that, because a lot of people will be like, oh, it's just fast food and it's not good for you. But you know what? Everybody's eating there. They're still around during a pandemic, right? So at some point, they clearly know what they're doing from a business standpoint, and clearly humans, on average, experience them. So it allowed me to realize that they believe in me. And I realized that life becomes a perception. And it becomes a perception of you have to believe in people, and you have to help people, and you have to grow people, no matter what you do. So for me, I always said basketball has given me the opportunity, sports has given me the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to be a good person. And my job is to continue that by giving back and to embrace everyone, male, female, black, white, whatever it is. Everyone deserves attention. Everyone deserves advice. Everyone deserves a helping hand. And for me, once I got to the Raptors, I saw where people kind of get into this, I'm too busy for everybody. I've got to focus on getting here and there. But you know who really taught me that the giving needs to continue? It was the players. The players really showed me that who I was to them was helping them, and it needs to be the same for others. And that's when I started realizing helping Kyle, helping Michael, helping my neighbor, those are the key things of what's going to keep this sport alive, keep people in great spirits, and to move this world forward. It's my way of impacting change. It's my way of giving back. And it drives me to help as many people as I can. And to your point, it does get to a point where sometimes you don't know who you're helping next because your calendar is always full and you're always moving on to another conversation. But for me, I'd rather talk to you than to, just dive into a book by myself. I'd rather learn together. And we even read the book together because I feel like I've grown with people and with teams more than I've grown by myself.
All right, Courtney, I got a couple more for you before we wrap this thing up. All right. And what I want to know is if you could speak to your former self at 18 years old, what would you tell yourself?
Nothing different, really, to be honest. I think I was pretty hard on myself already growing up. I tell people all the time I would have slept a little bit more to maybe see if I got a little bit of height from the hours of sleep that I probably missed, is why I'm short. I would have ate a little bit more of my mom's food instead of really trying to go out and eat some of this stuff that I was seeing on TV and being told was really good, because my mom's food was really solid. And I learned that once I went away to school. But I would have really just, told myself to continue to believe as I have believed to this point, and I continue to believe, but to dream big and to dream even bigger than you think you can dream, right? So when I look back and, to share a quick story, my son got the 2K21 and says, "Dad, look, 905 is in here." I said, "Man, they were in there last year. You guys just didn't look. You were so quick to go to your NBA teams and rosters. But now that I work for 905, he goes into the game a little differently and says, what else is in here?" And he sees the WNBA and he sees the G League. And he says, "Look, I'm going to do my career mode and I'm going to skip college and I'm going to go straight to the G League." And then he says, "Dad, look, the arena's in here. Is this the same arena as yours?" And what's funny about it is I remember playing the video game when I was a kid and saying, "Man, I would love to be part of a basketball team. I would love to be part of an organization. I would love to say I had an influence on setting the ticket prices and saying what we sell at the concession stand and how much to give this player a contract for." And to see my son believe that he can now play this video game and maybe even challenge himself in life to be part of it is unbelievable. I never dreamt that I would be this far. Never dreamt it. You think about it, but you don't dream it. Now you got to challenge people, dream bigger than that. Dream bigger than that, So that's something that I definitely would tell myself when I was smaller.
It sounds like he's training himself to come for your job now, though.
He's doing a really good job. He's got all the guys down packed that he likes in this NCAA tournament. Nice. He's scouting them. He's been watching them since high school. It's really good to see him, but he's also participating in it differently now too. He's got a little more of a competitive edge. He's starting to realize his time is now. A lot of times when you're young, you always think things are just going to happen as you get older, right? As I get older, I'll get stronger. As I get older, I'll get taller. He's starting to realize you got to put in the work now. And maybe that's an example of where I thought I was telling myself that, but again, my parents didn't know it to make sure I was doing it. I'm in a little bit of a different position to kind of show him a little bit better on how you can do it. And maybe that's the difference of what I would have done for myself if I had known that, but it's hard to know.
What do you believe your purpose in life is?
To give back. I really am in a position where I've seen so much of the world. And you, as a young person, think it's common, right? You think common sense is common. You think life experiences are common. And I've been able to go to a junior college, a D2, a D1. I've been able to travel to so many different places in the US. I've been able to travel outside of North America. And you think that this is common. And what I've started to realize is it's not. People don't have wills. People don't have life insurance. People have not gone to all Toronto sports events in their time. So for me, how can I start impacting change? How can I give back? How can I educate? How can I tell people how to build generational wealth, to be a great family person, to be a great community person, how to become a person that also gives back because you've also learned. And sometimes we think we have to learn a lot. No, take the little learning you've got and give back that as well. So for me, it's something that I want to do even more of, because I felt if I had more of it, I would have been even more successful. But guess what? I've been pretty successful in what I've gotten so far, and I want to make sure people are better than me.
Courtney, a lot of us are super proud of you, of the work that you've done over all these years, being a part of the Toronto Raptors organization. I would really love to sit down with you again when this pandemic has concluded, because there are still a million things that I would love to ask you and get more in depth about. But, once again, super proud of you, proud to see all the work that you've done. Still looking forward to see many of the things that you're still going to do, because I know you're far from done. Okay, so Courtney Charles, Vice President of Basketball and Franchise Operations for the Raptors 905. And Courtney, lastly, before we get out of here, if you had to give everybody who's going to be watching or listen to this one piece of life advice, what would it be?
Man, I want to first thank you for everything. Again, we reminisce a little bit and you think back and it's like, man, you don't really know how much you impact people. So I thank you for sharing and reminding me of what I have done and need to continue to do. And when it comes to, one piece of advice, I think we've said a lot of them, which is dream big, really learn to be patient and grow, listen. You've got great people around you and your parents and family members who are always trying to give as much advice, but sometimes it for us, it just seems a little like noise because it's so constant, or maybe it's because we know they love us, so they're telling us these things. But for me, we got to really just take time to listen and appreciate things. As much as we dream big, make sure you focus on what those dreams are. Make sure you have goals set to them so that you can work towards them. It's one thing to think, but it's another to action. So for me, there's not one thing. It's really about just an embracing and being positive and loving life, enjoying every day you woke up, trying to be better than you were yesterday. It's fun to try to just help people realize how they need to be motivated and how they need to motivate others. But I thank you for doing all that you do, and to take these times to sit down with people and to have them share their stories so people can hear them, and so that they can then go back and regenerate their timeline so that they can enjoy this thing called life.
Appreciate that very much. Very kind words. And Courtney, thank you for taking the time to do this podcast. Courtney Charles, everyone. Vice President, Basketball and Franchise Operations for the Raptors 905. And Courtney, thank you for taking the time to do this, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.